Think we are live here. So, it looks like it says live. So, everybody, hey, good afternoon. Welcome to the Nordic Startup and Entrepreneurship Community's live stream Thursday from the largest startup and entrepreneurship group in the Nordics. And this is a weekly video series where we chat with startups and entrepreneurs to learn more about their stories and journeys, both successes and failures. And today, I have with us an entrepreneur from here in Finland, CEO of Nordic Sales Crew, Mathias Dahlqvist. Thank you for joining us today. And
thank you for having me.
Good stuff. So if anybody here is tuning in on the live stream, we want you to comment below Sales Guru so that we know you're here, and that would help us out a lot so we can answer your questions and go forward with that. So let's jump right into this.
Yes.
So Mathias, tell us a little bit about your background, and then we can get into how you started your company that you're working at today.
Yeah, all right. So first of all, thanks for having me. As said, my name is Mathias Dahlqvist. I'm 25 years old. Currently work as the CEO of Nordic Sales Crew. I'm also one of the co-founders. And before Nordic Sales Crew, we ran a consulting company, which is still up and running. We did some consulting on IT service management for Elisa, big telecom operator here in Finland, and Microsoft, and a couple other smaller businesses. And that was sort of the get-go after uni. So I studied at Arcada University of Applied Sciences in Helsinki, Swedish University of Applied Sciences, and there sort of got into the entrepreneurship community here in Finland by starting up Arcada Entrepreneurship Society and being a lot involved with the entrepreneurship community
here of the Arcada.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
And then sort of starting my first company at Startup Sauna and being very active there. I've gained a big interest in the Nordic startup community through that, and currently pretty hands-on with the business. So everything I do pretty much circles around sales and the sales company, but I've found it pretty interesting, and we have had quite a ride the past few years. So it's been a pleasure in that sense, even though sometimes you when going deep in one thing, you miss out on some other opportunities. But until today, at least, I found this the most attractive project. So let's see how far we can get this. But that was sort of briefly.
Very cool. And I have to say, it's just like the last live stream. You're in a car, so everybody's moving, everybody's going places. So I mean, describe your life as an entrepreneur. Like, what are you doing right now? Where are you? Where are you heading up to?
So at the moment, I'm heading back from Pori to Helsinki. We thought with one of my co-founders is actually here, Paavo. So with Paavo, that we would take some load of the sales reps and do a trip here and set up a stall for this big event that is coming up, Asuntomessut, sort of apartment fair. And we were in Pori setting up a spot there. But sort of what my day-to-day life is. So I think somewhat it's sort of 24/7, but then still sort of manageable. So I feel that I have a pretty good balance what comes to work, relationship with my girlfriend, family, so on. So I feel that it's pretty good. What would you like to hear? What has been sort of the general thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like you're talking about your relationship. Is there any like problems with your relationship if you're traveling a lot or doing all these things? How do you maintain that? Because it is kind of a normal entrepreneurship thing. Like some people get divorced after because of the time. So how do you manage that?
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, the great part is that my girlfriend, we have been seeing each other now for over 6 years, and she's sort of who was just beginning uni and working as a ski instructor. So she has seen everything since the first company that we started. I'm now on the third one. So she sort of knows the drill. She would have dropped off earlier already if that would be the case. But also, I think that her being quite busy also and being interested in doing her own career has helped out a lot. I see colleagues, I see friends who have relationships where the other part might not be as like work centric, and that often creates issues, especially if the other part is not willing to accept that you're very heavily invested in the company or the business. But I think an open conversation is good to have, and then uh, also sometimes taking the time for the other part. So I feel I'm pretty good at that as well, like shutting down the phone in the evenings or not picking up the computer, because in the end, like, what's the 1 hour on the sofa during the evening instead of like running through the last emails with your eyes crossed? Uh, how much is that going to help in return of what you're going to get spending that like quality time a little bit better?
True. And speaking of investing in quality time, brought up the question of investment. Who's invested in the company? Do you have investors? How did you guys start that up?
Yeah, so we have been sort of bootstrapped until really like a month ago or something. And so when we started, we each of us put in €1,000, and that was basically it. But now we decided to put in a little bit more money ourselves, uh, but we haven't raised like capital or taking like debt from a veteran, something like that. It's really nice because you get to choose yourself, but sometimes it's pretty rough when you really have to like think about what you can do and what you can't do. But if I learned something from the whole entrepreneurship society thing at uni, was it's not resources, it's resourcefulness.
True.
So it's what you do, and you just need to for creative. Sometimes we joke we're going with what we have. But I think that during the or so we're probably in the, if we want to keep up with the pace that we are doing now, then I believe I that we're gonna need some working capital for sure.
And when do you think is the right time for somebody to take on some of this capital, whether it's Finvera or TechS, or if they're in Finland, or
Yeah,
when do you
yeah.
say is the time when you say, yeah, I really want to get funding now so we can move forward?
Yeah, so sort of if we think about the philosophy that we have had up until this point, it's that we want to be as free as possible. So as soon as we take on some outside money, then someone else is going to want that back. And as long as we sort of run this organically on our own money, then there's no one there who can tell you that why are you taking a Friday off, or why is this not happening, or so. I think it's mainly a question of deciding like what do you want decisions has been
I think we're breaking up a little bit here. We got robot Mathias here on the side. This is a very common thing that happens. Everybody's in cars, so things are breaking up.
Okay.
Let's see if it'll get a little bit better connection with Mathias in a second. Maybe he's just in a rough patch wherever he's at.
Let it will work. But are we? So just let me know when we're back and you can hear me.
I think now we can hear you. I think now we're good.
Okay, great. All right. So yeah, I think that I would for sure have, if it would have been only my decision, I would probably have raised some money earlier on and made a few key hires and maybe put in some infrastructure, things like this. But I'm also pretty happy with where we are now, and I know that doing business is always, if you're not by yourself, and even if you are by yourself, it's always some sort of a compromises that you have to get. So I'm pretty happy.
Good. And speaking of your team, so how did you put together the team? How did you find the people?
Yeah.
You said, yeah, I definitely want to go forward and make this company with these guys.
Yeah. So what happened was we were working with these projects with mainly Elisa, and during that time we were sitting at Startup Sauna. We met a lot of companies that were sort of developing their ideas, and all of them sort of sat on or many of them sat on the same issue, which was like, how should we get this on the shelf, or how should we get this thing sold? And me and one of our other co-founders, Juuso, always said, just pick up the phone, like call them. What's the thing? And they're like, I don't know, like, can I call them? What should I say to them? And so them about your product and see how they.
Okay. Now it's just still robot. Not sure what's happening here. Actually, we do know what's happening. We got cell phone reception, not so good with Mathias right now in his car. So maybe he's getting some rough patches, and that's what's throwing it off a little bit. Let's see if you can get connected back here, and then we can get to the questions that we've been getting. Are you there? Can you hear us?
I'm here. I can hear you greatly. There's no problem with your connection. You're running full speed, so I'm good. On. Yeah.
All right. So we got a question from Pokaril Pashin. I'm hopefully I'm saying that correctly. He says, "Dear Mathias, what kind of advice would you give to companies that are in the simulation stage?" And I'm guessing he's meaning companies similar to yours. So I guess simulation stage might mean early stages. So what advice would you give to somebody who's in, or I guess maybe it's, actually, I don't know exactly what it is, but yeah, what advice would you give to an early entrepreneur who's getting into something similar?
Let's make an assumption. Yeah, let's make an I know you should, but deciding where to go. So that would sort of, what I would say is that talk with the potential clients, and don't try to develop the product or service for that someone actually wants it, and try to develop it as as long as possible for the clients, and to talk the normal thing that at least I have heard times and times over again is that uh, you shouldn't be afraid of pitching your ideas. Don't be afraid of someone stealing it, because eventually, if the idea is super good, someone's going to try to knock you off. And if
True.
you're not prepared for someone knocking you, the idea is get feedback, and get the feedbacks from the people or the companies that are actually going to pay for your service, not from your mom or your dad or your friend or whatever, because they're always going to pat you on the back and
I think we're getting the gist of it. It's a little bit robotic, unfortunately. He's still right now. See if I can do the same. Yeah, now we're in the same angle. Something like this. Connection's not going so well. But
no. Okay, now I can hear you again.
Yeah. So getting past that. Speaking of the clients, how do you, since you're in a sales team in a way, what advice would you give for people who are trying to get clients for their product and who maybe are just programmers or something like that? They're not used to facing a customer. What advice would you give for something like that?
So, how to acquire people or clients?
Yeah, how to acquire clients.
Clients, yeah. So, okay, if we think about what we have done, we have sort of found a pretty good niche where we have got like 95% of the sales that we have done is inbound. So people have found us very well online and through references. So a good job will sort of go a long way. But when it comes to like actual sales, well, then we have a sort of a wider spectrum. If we think, is it business to business cases? Is it business to consumer cases? But I think like a universal thing is probably reaching out to them, letting them know that you exist. There's an awful lot of companies who don't do that, so they just sit around and wait for the deals landing in their lap, which is pretty what that gonna come and knock on your door. Or even the best products have to be sold usually. If we think about the gigantic companies of the world, is it Apple or Salesforce, whatever? In Finland, we have beautiful like finally so again. Are we doing the robot dance or?
Yeah, it was happening.
Yeah. So like just reaching out, picking up the phone, sending out emails, knock on the door, being present. Is it like doing marketing or whatever? Would be sort of the first part. But don't let the sort of when it comes to marketing, my philosophy is sort of that you have to follow up on it. So that you just put it out there and wait for someone to come to you would be a pretty like long shot if you're not the data and the numbers sort of turning it back to you and sort of following up on how it's converting and so forth. But the phone or then just showing up is a pretty good tool on making sure that you get to talk with the people that you want to.
Yeah, and then what about people who maybe are not so confident in actually talking with customers? What would you recommend for someone like that to learn the art of sales? Because I know it is a Nordic thing, sort of, to be very passive. Like the whole Nokia thing with, we'll build it and they'll come. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. So how do you get people who are maybe a little bit more reclusive, more introverted to become more extroverted and actually get out there and talk with their customers and their potential clients?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is like, if we think about how to get the sort of mental shift, I believe that the good thing is that sort of having a discussion with someone and understanding that the passion that they have for the product. So especially if you're an entrepreneur, then sort of selling the passion is sort of the best thing that you can do. We how we train salespeople is, so say 18 to 24 people who sell like mobile operating like connections or electric deals to private housing or cleaning services or something like this. And when they haven't done sales before, usually what we ask them to do is, we ask them, what are you really passionate about? And they might say, I'm really passionate about cooking. And okay, well, tell me about your favorite dish that you make. So, well, I make this really awesome spaghetti carbonara. And what I do, I go to the grocery store. I buy the best bacon that you can get. I get the freshest eggs. I make a beautiful handmade pasta. I cook it just perfectly al dente. I throw it in with the eggs and the bacon, serve it with some grated cheese on, and man, you're gonna love it. And that sort of, and you say to them, do you understand how well of a sales pitch you just gave me? And now we just have to like get you to understand the product that we are selling now and deliver it with the same passion.
Like I'm hungry now. I want to get some pasta al dente now.
Exactly. So that's sort of a good thing, and generally someone tells about their hobby like sports or whatever, and you can sort of see it, their eyes turn up and they're like, oh, this is amazing, and you're like, that's what we want to hear. And when you're really confident about something that you know how you make it, then uh, you will sort of assume an expert position in the discussion, and people will listen to you. So that's also one thing, is that sort of a little bit fake it until you make it mentality. That what we do, so we do, for example, door to door sales, and there the new people who start are often like, I don't know all the things about the service or whatever. And we always say that if someone would knock on your door, do you think that they are working for the first day in their life, or do you think that they have done it for the past year? Obviously, you're gonna think that they've been doing this for a long time, they're experts, so on. So as soon as they open the door, as soon as you sit in the meeting, you are thought of as the expert, and sort of taking that position, admitting to it, and not talking like over yourself, saying the things that you know. And if someone asks you something that you don't know, you say, that's a great question, I will get back to you on that one, instead of going well, and screwing it up. So
Yeah,
also
that's actually really good advice. I've actually thought the exact same thing. It's interesting because I think people who are really introverted or not really used to communicating, they start to think these guys are going to know I don't know anything. These guys they're going to figure me out. They're not going to want to buy this. And the thing is, they have no clue until you tell them that. Otherwise, they think you're the expert on everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you're the best. So it's only what you portray to the client that they're actually going to figure out or know. And it's not necessarily lying. It's just sort of instilling that in yourself to get the confidence.
Exactly. And also like there's a margin of error in this thing as well, there will come the day when the guy next to you has done the same thing that you sold for 10 years before, and he will call your bluff. But then you just have to live with it, right? That's like battle damage or what you want to call it. So, but you have to sort of live with it and understand that anything new is sort of riding and learning how to ride a bike. You will fall, you will scratch your knees, you will bleed, you want to ditch the bike in the ditch, you're gonna cry. But do you know anyone, or probably we know someone who hasn't learned how to ride a bike or who hasn't learned how to walk, but you just have to get up and move on. And I think the biggest thing always with any kind, is it sports, quitting smoking, want to sell, you need to have some sort of a purpose for it. So why do I actually want to do this? And if your purpose is clear, then that will sort of be the thing that when you fall, when you get beat up by the guy who knows way more about it, you can admit to yourself and say, well, hey, uh, this is the reason why I do it. I know that this is going to happen from time to times. I will learn from this and I will keep going forward.
Very true. Very true. And then what about for people who are new to the game and they want to get some help on starting a company or getting into sales and things like that? What kind of resources are there available in, for example, where the area you're at? You're in Helsinki, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, what is some resources that people can use to help them start a company or to meet people and build teams and things like that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would encourage people to go to the open co-working spaces and their events. So one would be, of course, Startup Sauna, Aalto Entrepreneurship Society. There are entrepreneurship societies all around Finland. There are some in Sweden as well. I know in Stockholm there's Exitera. In Copenhagen there is Copenhagen Business Schools. They have an entrepreneurship lab there as well. So there are definitely a strong community around unis. That doesn't mean that you necessarily have to be a uni student to attend these events. They're usually open to everyone. There might be entrepreneurs talking, there might be investors, there might be some corporate partners. So following up them on Facebook, good first happenings are. There is also Microsoft Flux, a really nice co-working space. I just visited Tampere. In Tampere, there was another sort of similar space. Now I can't remember what it was called. Tribe was the place. They run sort of different programs. So those are sort of readily available spots. And Finland is an exceptional place in the sense that most of these places are free of charge. Doesn't cost you anything. Really top-notch presenters, and a lot of them run some sort of a summer program or accelerator or something like this by the side. They and the sort of accelerators are free of charge, and some even give you like $3,000 to attend, which is crazy good for us, and also people from the Nordics and outside the Nordics kind of, and the same deal is for everyone. So those are really good. Then there is obviously this Yritys Helsinki sort of, how we said, government funded sort of institution who help you set up the company and deal with things like this. But I think there's
Startup Sauna, so it's an accelerator program for those who don't know. What did you get benefit from that? Like, why would someone join an accelerator?
All right.
What's
so
and
yeah. I didn't go through Startup Sauna. I just spent a lot of time at Startup Sauna. So for those who don't know, Startup Sauna is also a big building and co-working space. And the Startup Sauna Accelerator is sort of a program that runs twice a year where you can apply to. So yeah, I haven't been through the program. I think you might have, but yeah, I haven't that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and is there any reason you didn't go through the accelerator? Any specific reason?
Definitely think there is, and the reason that, as I see, is that all the business that we have done are sort of very traditional, like service businesses, and there hasn't been any like innovations or tech involved in that sense in what we do. So we are sort of out of the scope of many of these like programs. Um, so yeah, that's why.
Okay. And then what are the next steps for the company that you're in right now? So, I mean, you guys are obviously growing and getting more clients. Is there anything that's down the pipeline that you want to tell anybody about?
For sure. So what's happening now, like just brief story for the most of you who probably know what we are doing, who don't know what we are doing, is that we have a sales outsourcing company. We are sort of shifting to a model that we want to call sales service. So you can get a product service 16 fall, and with the idea of selling pretty much anything to anyone who's willing to pay us something for it. And now we are sort of more and more at the business to consumer side of it. So we do stands, door to doors, events, shopping centers, things like this. And from 2016 fall, we did the first full year, 2017, turned over almost 700,000 euros. And now we are on the run to double that approximately this year. We are currently employing about 80 people, and we would have work for another 50 tomorrow if we would just find the group of people, like attract them. So our definitely our biggest mission is now working on the recruitment part. So finding new sales reps, more sales reps, and the sort of client, like getting clients which products we could sell is not the issue. The issue is finding sales reps. So recruiting, and here's the part with the money that we probably gonna need a bit further down the line is putting some money in the marketing efforts for that, building up employer brand, general awareness that we are sort of a good place to kickstart your sales career. And another thing is that we're trying to set up now, what do you call it? Hallitus, like an executive board, maybe? Non-executive board would probably be the right word. And so we are now looking for a chair in some discussions there. And probably during next year, we will build up that part sort of to give some structure to so we can separate the strategic work with the operative work, which can be pretty tough times to times when the same people are the owners, the non-executive board, and the sort of board of directors. So you have to wear different hats in different situations. So a little bit splitting up on that and giving us some distance and some new thoughts.
And since you have so many employees at the company, you said it was what, 60 employees? How is it when you're managing that many people? How is it going from a very small startup to then scaling it up to that? Because there's some growing pains and some lessons to be learned. Sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, good staff, uh, having good people that you can rely on. We have done loads of mistakes on hiring people that shouldn't have been hired, uh, and just by easy things like when we started off, we were like, "Oh, you like to play football? I like to play football. You're welcome. Please join." And like things like this. And we so focusing on like asking people the questions like, how do you feel about our culture? How are you fitting in? Are you ready to take on responsibility? Blah blah blah. uh,
Mhm.
so that's a good part, and really like focusing on the culture, the general feeling in the company, making sure that everyone is getting what they need. um, and obviously, like, you can, when you're growing, you cannot always serve everyone. And I think that even though we have had like super happy people, there's probably a handful of them who thought that we have been sloppy, or we didn't focus on this thing, or we didn't focus on that thing. But then you just need to find people who think a little bit similar and are willing to go the direction that you are. So at the moment we have 10, 10 team leaders who run their team. There might be 12 or 10. So they are sort of running their individual groups, uh, which sort of takes care of the day-to-day ops pretty nicely. We are also spread from Helsinki to Oulu. So we have offices in Turku, Tampere, Oulu, which sort of gives it another dimension of trickiness when you have to do some things on a distance, and sometimes you have to travel. But I feel that we have been pretty successful at that. But also I see that we could most definitely do some more, being more on site. But then it's sort of, when you're there, you're not at the other place, so you just have to sort of do some compromises there when you cannot have all the people or use all the resources that you would want, when we have decided the path of bootstrapping.
True.
Yeah.
And we got some questions on the group right now. So
Awesome.
let's see. We got one that says, "What about outsourcing and partnering app plus web development to overseas company? Relatively various factors, i.e., cost. Is it okay? What about outsourcing or partnering with app? Oh, okay. What do you think about partnering with app and development teams overseas to develop,
Using
I
yes.
guess, a sales application?" It's a little bit hard to understand the question, but
Yeah.
yeah. What do you think
So,
about
but,
outsourcing to overseas
um,
company?
uh, like, well, we have done like in the previous company, we did some projects overseas. Let's say if we talk from Finland, overseas, a lot of like Asia. And I think the main issue that we had was working there is that the culture on how we do things here in the Nordics and how things are done there are pretty different. We are also used to quite a high standard on when you look at like app development or web development. So that's sort of, you have to be really sure on what, where you get it from, trying to find a reliable source. I think it's with all kind of outsourcing. Is it manufacturing in wherever, you have to find a good manufacturer. And same thing with I think software development in general. You have to find a reliable source. And where to find that? Well, I don't know. I'm the wrong guy to answer that, but uh, there there's probably plenty of them. But I would definitely consider some like European ones. If money is the issue, then try to figure out the money somewhere. It's probably going to be end up in the long term cheaper if you get it somewhere. There's the quote about do you think it's expensive to hire a pro? Well, wait until you hire an amateur. So that sort of resonates pretty well when it comes to pricing. But there are exceptions for sure.
We got another question here from Garrett Fuchs. It says, how are you guys attracting customers specifically?
Yeah. So the customers to us, like for today, the general sort of road to acquiring customers has been doing a hell of a good job for the ones that we have, so that they would talk well about us. And then the second one is we have a list of 50, 70 companies that we would want to work with. And from time to time, we sort of run through that list. We sort of try to map out who do we know at these companies. Use LinkedIn. Okay, here's the head of sales or the CEO. How could I get in contact with him? Could I go through this person or this person to then get in touch with them, or how should I go about it? And then sort of try to pinpoint, like references is super good. So I usually look at, if I run into someone on LinkedIn, I look, do we have any contacts in common? I contact some of the contacts in common and say, hey, would you mind introducing me to this person? I would like to tell them a little bit about our service. And through that path is usually really good, because the single email or the random email on
Getting into a little bit of robot movement here.
Yeah.
Okay, you're back. We heard single email and then it kind of disappeared.
So single emails or email messages are usually not so effective, but if you get a recommendation or introduction is the right word from someone else, then that's usually super good.
Really good. I think
so that's sort of.
Yeah. I think this is a perfect way to end the live stream. I think we've got a lot of really good information here. If anybody has any other questions, you can ask here on the video, and we can forward those off to Mathias later. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you for Mathias for taking part.
Thank you for having me. And also, I'm happy to answer any question on LinkedIn or Facebook. You can find me there. Feel free to drop a note with whatever. I'll reply as fast as possible.
Very cool. Very cool. Next Thursday, we're going to be chatting with Joona Kotilainen, a Finnish entrepreneur and co-founder of Tovari Marketing Agency. So if you're interested in marketing and interested in video, which I think everybody should be, it should be an interesting talk. So thank you again, Mathias.
I will be there. Thank you.
Good. And Nordic Startup, thanks for tuning in. See you all next Thursday. You're on.